Man, let's look at what people think of the new league.
I don't have enough Chaos Orbs to roll my maps. The league isn't rewarding enough. I have 4 level 83 characters and I've only found 1 divine. Honestly, I'm done and going back to Diablo 4 until the next league.
Oh no.
Ready yourself. I will be waiting.
So picture this. There was a time in Path of Exile where you would actually be specifically running Underground Sea just because it drops the divination cards to give you alchemies. There are loads of examples like this where, well, you would actually do the chisel recipe with selling a gavel with 20 quality on a map, etc. to get a chisel. And this sounds maybe ridiculous compared to today's Path of Exile where we have this. Oh! Oh my god! You are probably going to feel poor next league. We've all seen the current craze going around with wisp farming, and we have got crazy highlights both in this channel and in many others. The current Affliction League is by far the craziest loot pinata we've ever had in Path of Exile. The only thing that comes close was Scourge farming, where softcore people went 300 Scourge stacks deep into tier 16 tower maps, which essentially doubled your map's mob count and made it extremely difficult. So it would be really rippy and not something you could do on hardcore, but on Affliction, people are farming tier 7 maps and doing low tiers, and that's super worth it. And once the Wildwood hits, it really hits.
Oh! I'm looting.
But what happens next league when this all goes away? Whenever a league has been really special and really unusual, as in like dropping a lot more, giving you a lot more power, a lot more easier access to crafting, you're probably not going to have the same next league, right? They usually focus on different things. So the next league might not be as rewarding in raw currency, it might not be as rewarding in new uniques, and you might not be able to do the same builds you were able to do before. A lot of people are currently feeling like they're forced to do the league mechanic. They feel like anything else than Magic Find right now is pointless. Well, technically that's not true, and that's the beauty of Trade League. But even this league, I've had so many people in my chat saying I've farmed several Mage Bloods just by farming Essence, and one guy said I sold my Essence tab of 2 days of farming for 60 Divines. So you can like very, very quickly get a lot amount of currency because everything else is skyrocketing value, anything that you don't get from doing this loot pinata thing. And we're also seeing things like farming destructive play and bosses being extremely valuable because not that many people are farming bosses now. Don't worry, later in the video we'll give you multiple tips and direct you to videos I've already made where you can farm your own currency with core content. But let's look at where this happened in the past. So, Poverty Leagues. The most recent example was Calandra League. When Calandra started, Arch Nemesis rare monsters were put into the game, replacing the old format as well as the removal of Old Beyond, which honestly was the backbone of endgame map farming. The league mechanic was not very rewarding at start, and some would say it was the least rewarding mechanic of all time. Combine these two together, and you already had a bad experience. But there's more. We were coming off Sentinel, which was one of the most highly regarded leagues of its time, and this had things like Recombinators and things that I really enjoyed, whereas the Calandra mechanic was not enjoyed as much. So that felt like a really big whiplash, and the community has one of its lowest points. And before that, we had the start of Arch Nemesis, where you had to build a bear mechanic to create monsters that were extremely rewarding and would give you a large amount of unique items. However, you wouldn't get a large amount of divines or anything else. It was mostly focusing on uniques, being very similar to Perandus League. By the time Arch Nemesis was done receiving buffs and fixes, people were also creating loot explosions, then later in the league with multiple divines. Now let me take you back to Expedition. Coming off the back of Ultimatum, another league that was incredibly rewarding and player power was at an all-time high, we arrive at the very dreaded 3.15. The patch came with heavy nerfs to player power, player defenses, and reworked the flash system. And on top of being significantly weaker than before, the league mechanic was also a hit or a miss. You either loved placing the explosive minigame and making friends with our 4 new traders, or you were more like me, where I really hated like suddenly stopping and having to like look at the things, decide where I'm going to put the explosions, and wait for them to detonate. Currency drops were extremely scarce during mapping, so you basically either interacted with Tuyen or you were kind of broke. Another infamous example was the Bestiary League, where finding alchemy orbs was so difficult that it drove everybody to Underground Sea hunting the survivalist. And it was so unhinged that people believed that the nets that you threw that would drop would actually be dropping instead of alchemy drops.
Great job, Exile.
So what do? What's going to happen if the next league feels like a poverty league? Sanctum. Sanctum requires very minimal trading for your forbidden tomes, and it's just so much divines per hour. Expedition. Speccing into Expedition early is an extremely great way of generating currency. Focusing on Tuyen and Danig to window shop for currency and getting logbooks that can either be run or sold for good profit. Heist. Another hit or miss mechanic, but it has been made a lot better this league with the fact that all the grand heists are the same. Really, really good. This league, it's insanely valuable because of the simplex and focus amulets. Harvest as well. Everybody needs harvest to craft, so selling the juice is going to be extremely, extremely lucrative. And as always, now that we have the 7th gate and can always access things like essence farming is insane. It's so used for crafting a lot of high-end gear and getting started on it. So essence farming and just farming that in low tier maps, tier 7s, or if you're even weaker, even tier 1s work, because there's no difference on an essence dropped in a tier 1 map or a tier 16. So all of these methods are great ways so you can make loads of divines per day. Now obviously, the faster you do it, the more you'll get, but all of these are very good methods. We do have other videos that cover these more in depth, etc. I just wanted to point out some things and start a discussion about what you're expecting for the next league. And what do you think about this league? Do you think this is the way Path of Exile should be, or is it a little bit too crazy right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Sub if you liked the video, but more importantly, try to die less than our wallet does next league.